For my honors capstone project, I wanted to learn more about human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking, and how Iowa's laws and legislation reflect the severity of the issue. To do this, I continued my studies from my Women and Gender Studies 450 course to do a case study analysis relating to sex trafficking cases in Iowa. I researched and interpreted Iowa code relating to the issue, and I analyzed how these laws and legislation compare to similar crimes. First, it is necessary to understand what sex trafficking is. Polaris defines sex trafficking as a form of modern-day slavery in which individuals perform commercial sex through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. If force, fraud, or coercion are present, the case is a trafficking case. It is not simply a sex work case. Typically, sex trafficking victims are thought to be poor international runaway girls and women who are trafficked overseas. However, trafficking cases occur in the United States, with the Polaris Project having reports of 22,191 United States sex trafficking cases since 2007. Sex trafficking is not a solely international concern. It occurs nationally at astonishing rates. Victims are not solely international girls and women. Victims consist of men and women, adults and children, and foreign nationals and U.S. citizens. Buyers of trafficking victims are typically middle-aged white men. Traffickers, on the other hand, come in many forms, including familial traffickers, strong-arm pimps, boyfriend pimps, international traffickers, and buyers as traffickers. It is extremely difficult for law enforcement to convict traffickers, as sex work is not legal nationally, and many times the victims are convicted for prostitution rather than the trafficker being convicted for the act of trafficking. According to Iowa Code Section 701, a person who knowingly engages in human trafficking is guilty of a Class D felony, except that if the victim is under the age of 18, in which the person is guilty of a Class C felony. A Class D felony is one that results in a maximum prison term not to exceed 5 years. The person will face a fine of at least $750, but no more than $7,500. A Class C felony, on the other hand, is one that results in a maximum prison term not to exceed 10 years. The person will face a fine of at least $1,000, but no more than $10,000. So, in Iowa, the maximum prison term a trafficker will face for trafficking other humans is 10 years, although more charges could be allocated for related offenses. However, most trafficking cases are not reported as trafficking. Commonly, they are reported as either sexual abuse and/or prostitution cases. According to Iowa Code Section 709, sexual abuse has 3 degrees of severity. Sexual abuse in the first degree requires serious injury to be caused to the victim. This results in a Class A felony. A Class A felony is the most serious type of felony, punishable by life imprisonment. Sexual abuse in the second degree is when there are threats of a dangerous weapon or when there is risk of death or serious injury. This results in a Class B felony. A second-degree sex abuse conviction will result in lifetime parole and a maximum prison term not to exceed 25 years. Sex abuse in the third degree results when the act uses force against the will of another person. This results in a Class C felony, which can result in lifetime parole and a maximum prison term not to exceed 10 years. Sexual abuse in the third degree is the easiest to convict traffickers on, as it only requires proof that the act was done against the will of the victim with the use of force. Along with sexual abuse, traffickers are commonly charged for pimping prostitutes rather than trafficking victims. According to Iowa Code Section 725, a pimp is a person who solicits a buyer for a prostitute or who knowingly takes or shares in the earnings of a prostitute. If a trafficker is committed as a pimp using this definition, he will be charged with a Class D felony. This is the same punishment as an individual who knowingly engages in human trafficking. However, if the pimp solicits a buyer for a prostitute who is under the age of 18, this will result in a Class C felony. This is the same punishment as an individual who knowingly engages in human trafficking of a victim under the age of 18. So, both the convictions for trafficking and the convictions for pimping are practically identical. The laws against trafficking are not exceptionally severe in Iowa. This lessens the severity of the crime. Since human trafficking, modern-day slavery, is a relatively new concept, many individuals and law enforcement officials are uninformed on the crisis. While sex trafficking is commonly viewed to not be a pressing issue in Iowa, or even in the United States, it happens everywhere and it is necessary for students, law enforcement, and community members to be informed about the issue to properly combat it. Trafficking victims do not have one age, one gender, one race, or one sexuality. Neither do traffickers or buyers. It can be difficult to detect trafficking cases, but with the proper education and improved laws against trafficking, the crisis will become more well known and, in turn, it'll be minimized. Thank you.